There is a specific kind of legal vertigo that takes hold when one begins to peel back the layers of the American jurisdictional landscape. For the uninitiated, the law is a set of rules for public safety and order. However, historical archives and deep-level legal synthesis suggest a far more unsettling reality. The government we interact with daily is a facade, a sophisticated jurisdictional overlay masking a corporate operational structure. Let's examine the specific statutes, treaties, and codes that reveal how the American legal system has been quietly transformed from a constitutional republic into a web of international commercial contracts.
What history book, what religious book tells you that the government was there for you and helping you? Like, wasn't it the government who killed Jesus? It was the government who took your land. Who took the land, they stole this land. Like, there's no history book, there's no religious book that ever said that the government was here to help you. So just keep that in mind.
The claim that the United States is a corporation rather than a sovereign government is often dismissed as radical rhetoric. Yet the legal geography is grounded in the U.S. Code itself.
What position do you think I learned first of a corporation?
The LLC?
No, the positions.
Oh, position. The CEO?
President.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
President. Second position, vice president. Treasurer. Starting to sound like a government now. Because 28 U.S.C. subsection 15A says what? United States is a federal corporation, sure. Right? And what do corporations have? Presidents.
Yeah.
Vice presidents.
Sure.
So boom, I started learning. I learned before I went to the LLC.
Yeah.
Corporations matched almost directly up to trust.
Wow.
Because with LLCs, because you got one, we hand out percentages, right?
Sure. Yep.
And corporations, what do they hand out? Do you know? Shares. Yes. You get shares in the company. So as soon as you start a corporation, you're going to tell how many shares you have.
Yeah.
You know, just like it. So with a trust, they hand out shares too, or just units. Yep. You can do units, trust certificate units, or beneficial units.
Under Title 28 U.S.C. 3002, Section 15A, the law explicitly defines the United States as a federal corporation. This is not merely a technicality. It is a fundamental shift in status that occurred on December 26, 1933. The 49 Statute 3097 Treaty Series 881, the Convention on Rights and Duties of States, allegedly signaled the moment Congress replaced domestic statutes with international law, placing the American states under a global jurisdictional umbrella. This transition mirrors the Dutch collapse template, a historical precedent where an empire shifts from production to financial management, eventually cannibalizing itself through debt and false bookkeeping. In this framework, the citizen is no longer a constituent but a debtor customer, and the state acts as a federal subcontractor, providing services under contract. Title 28 U.S.C. 3002 Section 15A states that the United States is a federal corporation and not a government, including the Judiciary procedural section.
The trademark and the signature, the trademark and the thumbprint, even your electronic signature, you need to trademark it. The stamp of your foot, the sole prop, you can trademark that, so they can't use your essence. Just want y'all to know that. So, when you get booked in jail, they want your thumbprint signature, right? So you can get out those contracts because you're already trademarked.
To comprehend the modern mandate, one must recognize that Washington, District of Columbia, is legally a foreign city-state. Much like Vatican City or the inner city of London, D.C. functions as an independent international enclave. Historical records indicate that while Philadelphia remains the actual national capital, the District of Columbia has been under the occupation of a British territorial government since 1861. This municipality of Washington is a foreign enclave set apart for federal subcontractors to conduct business. From a deep legal perspective, Any action taken by the District of Columbia is the act of a foreign entity whose jurisdiction does not inherently touch the soil of the sovereign states. It is a jurisdictional Trojan horse. It exists as an independent entity that could be excised from the continent without technically violating American airspace, yet it exerts control through the legalization of criminal financial activities. The most jarring reality involves the legal status of public officials and the people they oversee. According to Title 8 U.S.C. 1481 and Title 22 U.S.C. Chapter 11, the act of taking an oath of office is viewed as a voluntary relinquishment of citizenship. By taking the oath, the official becomes a foreign agent or a foreign entity. The code reveals a startling irony. Every public office, including every single court, is considered a separate foreign entity. It sounds like it defeats the whole purpose of taking such an oath to begin with, doesn't it? When an individual enters these courtrooms, they are often mischaracterized as a corporate strawman, a fictitious persona created to facilitate commercial transactions. This is your all-caps name. Proponents argue this is effectively a kidnapping of the living man, subjugating his natural persona to a damaged financial entity subject to the jurisdiction of foreign policemen or policy men. 22 CFR 92.12 to 92.31 FR heading Foreign Relationship states that an oath is required to take office. Title 22 U.S.C. Chapter 11 identifies all public officials as foreign agents.
What if I told you paying tax is optional, registering a vehicle, optional, paying a fine, optional, attending court? You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Surprised? Let's dig a little deeper. Did you know that every mortgage and loan is fully repaid from day one? Yes, you can pay it again if you want to, but you don't have to. If you've never heard of your straw man, this may just be the most eye-opening journey of your life. Your straw man was created when you were far too young to understand. It was a secret, a method designed to swindle you, and its effectiveness is staggering. Your straw man is the fictitious legal entity that represents you in the eyes of the system. It was birthed when your parents registered your birth, unknowingly surrendering ownership to the state. You see, when they applied for a birth certificate, the truth was never disclosed. They were not informed that by doing so, they allowed a straw man to be created, an entity that could be used against you. This registration is not just a formality, it's a hidden contract, one that is null and void due to the absence of full disclosure. Do you understand what that means? Your birth certificate is not evidence of your identity, it's a legal title generated by the state. A title they retain while you believe you own it.
The modern judiciary has evolved into what Thomas Jefferson feared most, a judicial oligarchy. Jefferson described federal judges as sappers and miners who work underground to undermine the foundations of the Confederated fabric. This critique is sharpened by the 1950 investigation of the 81st Congress, which suggested that the Bar Association was founded and run by communists. Consequently, any official who is a member of the bar is seen as loyal to the association rather than the people. Since 1789, the system has arguably lacked true constitutional judges. Instead, the bench is occupied by administrative officers overseeing business transactions. These unaccountable lawyers treat the law as a commodity, where the Constitution means only what the court decides it means at any given moment. Show me that age and country where the rights and liberties of the people were placed on the sole chance of their rulers being good men, without a consequent loss of liberty. I say that the loss of our dearest privilege has ever followed with absolute certainty every such mad attempt. Patrick Henry.
What if the moment you hire your attorney, you give up your rights? What if the key to the courtroom wasn't a license, but a secret handshake? The moment you hire an attorney, you're told you've gained an advocate. But what they don't tell you is that you've also become a ward of the court, a player in their game, by their rules. They speak in so-called layman's terms, not to simplify, but to assert their version of reality. What they hold is a bar association card. It is not a license from the people. It is a membership card to a private fraternity, an exclusive club with its own rules and its own agenda. They have sworn an oath to the guild, not to you. You're told you become a client, but what they don't tell you is that you've also become a ward of the court, a subject in the system you don't control.
They call them lawyers or lawmen, but the truth is hidden in plain sight. They speak in layman's terms, not to simplify things for you, but to assert their own version of reality. They practice as an attorney at law, a title that denotes the color of law semblance, a shadow of that which is real, but not the law itself. They show you a bar card, but where's the license? There is none, because no one can license you to exercise the rights you were born with.
The transition from constitutional rights to business contracts is the defining shift of the modern era. If the legal system is indeed a series of interlocking commercial treaties managed by foreign agents, then jurisdiction is not an absolute power. It is a presumption based on consent and comprehension. The matrix relies on the individual's willingness to be mischaracterized as a corporate strawman.
You've been walking into courtrooms thinking you're a living soul with rights. The reality, to the system, you're a ghost. You're a legal phantom. And until you understand status, standing, and agency, you're playing a game where the rules were written to make you lose. Your status determines what rules apply to you. According to Black's Law Dictionary, status is your legal position or condition. If you're operating as an agent for a corporate entity under bankruptcy, you're bound by those duties. You can't claim constitutional rights as a vessel of bankruptcy. Standing gives you court access through 3 pillars: injury in fact, causation, and redressability. No injury, no case. Half the people suing you don't actually have standing to be there. We live in a world of dead corporate entities. That all caps name, it's your straw man. The system presumes you are the agent paying bills for this dead fiction. Under HJR 192, the Republic was privatized. Your equity was released, but because you haven't claimed your position as beneficiary, they trade bonds in your name while sending you the bill.
Modern legal proceedings target a fictitious persona, or straw man, rather than the living being. This system utilizes the Emergency Banking Relief Act to facilitate the securitization and monetization of citizens, extracting value from human activity as if it were a raw commodity. Under FRCP 12b-6, the prosecution effectively fails if they cannot prove the parties involved are corporate entities, yet the system relies on the citizen's silent consent to this mischaracterization. In a sane world, there is no such thing as silent consent. Consent is the act of giving formal authorization. No act at all isn't an act. You can't give permission by not giving permission. You seem to consider the judges as the ultimate arbiters of all constitutional questions. A very dangerous doctrine indeed, and one which would place us under the despotism of an oligarchy. Thomas Jefferson. This centralization reflects the warnings of anti-federalists like Brutus and George Mason, who predicted the federal judiciary would possess unlimited power to destroy state relevance. Brutus specifically warned that these courts would be independent of heaven itself, possessing the authority to mold the government into any shape they pleased. Jefferson later echoed this, describing the federal judiciary as a subtle corps of sappers and miners, constantly working to undermine the foundations of the confederated fabric. Just as Dutch bankers eventually invested in the very navy that blockaded their own ports, the modern financialized legal system consumes the productivity of the people it claims to govern. To reclaim the soil of common law and allodial title, one must first recognize the difference between being lost at sea in corporate admiralty and standing on solid ground.
Ever wonder why legal terms sound like shipping terminology? Legal terms often sound like shipping terminology for a reason. There are 2 laws, the law of the land and the law of water. The law of the land and the law of water. The law of water is maritime admiralty law, which governs commerce and banking worldwide. Think about it, you go to court like a basketball court, judges rule from the bench, which means bank in Latin, and when ships dock, they need a certificate of manifest. When you were born, your mother's water broke, you came down the birth canal and were delivered to the doctor who signed your birth certificate. Some research discovered this makes you a maritime product under admiralty law from birth.
There are 2 types of laws. One is real, natural law. The other is called color law. An imitation designed to look real, practiced on the masses every single day. The secret lies in how they see you. The law recognizes 2 different persons. There's the corporate person, a legal fictional entity, a name on paper, and then there is the natural person. That's you, the living flesh and blood being.
A natural person can be injured. Your body, your property, a contract you made. When there's a real injury, there's a real remedy. But a corporation, a fictional entity, it can't be injured. It can only have its profits or contracts affected. It's a completely different game with completely different rules. Think of Walmart. Your birth certificate, your driver's license, your bank accounts, which person are they connected to? The system is designed to interact with one. If you don't know which one you are, you're playing your game without knowing the rules. The question is, are you ready to learn them? Tap into DK's private business circle. Much peace and love.
By the authority vested in us as sovereign men and women under the Constitution of the United States of America, the inherent rights of free peoples, and the laws and principles including the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, 50 U.S.C. 1701 ET-Seq. IEPA, the National Emergencies Act, 50 U.S.C. 1601 ET-Seq. NEA, the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, Public Law 114-328, the Act, Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, 8 U.S.C. 1182F, INA, and other foundational authorities. We the people, assembled in our sovereign capacity as the true guardians of justice and liberty, find that the prevalence and severity of human rights abuse and corruption, originating in whole or in substantial part outside the borders of any single nation, as exemplified by those listed in the annex to this declaration, have reached such scope and gravity that they threaten the stability of international political and economic systems. Human rights abuse and corruption undermine the sacred values that form the essential foundation of stable, secure, and functioning societies, inflict devastating harm on individuals, weaken democratic institutions, erode the rule of law, perpetuate violent conflicts, enable dangerous actors, and subvert economic markets. We the people demand tangible and significant consequences for those who commit serious human rights abuse or engage in corruption, and seek to shield the financial systems of free nations from abuse by these same persons. We therefore determine that serious human rights abuse and corruption worldwide constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States and to the universal rights of humanity. And we hereby declare a state of sovereign emergency to confront this threat through our collective tribunal authority. We hereby determine and decree. Section 1. A. All property and interests in property that are in the United States, that hereafter come within the United States, or that are or hereafter come within the possession or control of any United States person belonging to the following persons are blocked, and may not be transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, or otherwise dealt in. 1. The persons listed in the annex to this declaration. 2. Any foreign person determined by the stewards of this tribunal, in consultation with designated representatives of justice and accountability. A. To be responsible for or complicit in, or to have directly or indirectly engaged in serious human rights abuse. B. To be a current or former government official, or a person acting for or on behalf of such an official, who is responsible for or complicit in, or has directly or indirectly engaged in. 1. Corruption, including the misappropriation of state assets, the expropriation of private assets for personal gain, corruption related to government contracts or the extraction of natural resources, or bribery, or 2. The transfer or the facilitation of the transfer of the proceeds of corruption. C. To be or have been a leader or official of 1. An entity, including any government entity that has engaged in, or whose members have engaged in, any of the activities described in subsections 2A, 2B, 1, or 2B, 2 of this section relating to the leader's or official's tenure, or 2. An entity whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this declaration as a result of activities related to the leader's or official's tenure, or D. To have attempted to engage in any of the activities described in subsections 2A, 2B, 1, or 2B, 2 of this section, and 3. Any person determined by the stewards of this tribunal, in consultation with designated representatives of justice and accountability. A. To have materially assisted, sponsored, or provided financial, material, or technological support for, or goods or services to or in support of 1. Any activity described in subsections 2A, 2B, 1, or 2B, 2 of this section that is conducted by a foreign person. 2. Any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this declaration, or 3. Any entity, including any government entity, that has engaged in, or whose members have engaged in, any of the activities described in subsections 2a, 2b, 1 or 2b, 2 of this section, where the activity is conducted by a foreign person. b. To be owned or controlled by, or to have acted or purported to act for or on behalf of, directly or indirectly, any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this declaration. Or c. To have attempted to engage in any of the activities described in subsections 3a or b of this section. b. The prohibitions in subsection a of this section apply except to the extent provided by statutes, or in regulations, orders, directives, or exemptions that may be issued pursuant to this declaration, and notwithstanding any contract entered into or any license or permit granted before the effective date of this declaration. Sector 2. The unrestricted immigrant and non-immigrant entry into the United States of aliens determined to meet one or more of the criteria in Section 1 of this declaration would be detrimental to the interests of free peoples, and the entry of such persons into the United States, as immigrants or non-immigrants, is hereby suspended. Such persons shall be treated as persons covered by analogous principles of prior proclamations and emergency measures. Sector 3. We hereby determine that the making of donations of the types of articles specified in Section 203b, 2 of IEPA, 50 U.S.C. 1702b, 2, by, to, or for the benefit of any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this declaration would seriously impair our collective ability to address the emergency declared herein, and we hereby prohibit such donations as provided by Section 1 of this declaration. Sector 4. The prohibitions in Section 1 include a. The making of any contribution or provision of funds, goods, or services by, to, or for the benefit of any person whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this declaration, and b. The receipt of any contribution or provision of funds, goods, or services from any such person. Sector 5. A. Any transaction that evades or avoids, has the purpose of evading or avoiding, causes a violation of, or attempts to violate any of the prohibitions set forth in this declaration is prohibited. B. Any conspiracy formed to violate any of the prohibitions set forth in this declaration is prohibited. Sector 6. For the purposes of this declaration, a. The term person means an individual or entity. B. The term entity means a partnership, association, trust, joint venture, corporation, group, subgroup, or other organization. And c. The term United States person means any United States citizen, permanent resident alien, entity organized under the laws of the United States or any jurisdiction within the United States, including foreign branches, or any person in the United States. Sector 7. For those persons whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this declaration, who might have a constitutional presence in the United States, we find that because of the ability to transfer funds or other assets instantaneously, prior notice to such persons of measures to be taken pursuant to this declaration would render those measures ineffectual. We therefore determine that for these measures to be effective in addressing the emergency declared herein, there need be no prior notice of a listing or determination made pursuant to this declaration. Sector 8. The stewards of this tribunal, in consultation with representatives of justice, are hereby authorized to take such actions, including adopting rules and regulations, and to employ all powers granted under the invoked authorities, as may be necessary to implement this declaration and relevant sections of the Act. Such stewards may, consistent with applicable principles, redelegate any of these functions to other agents of accountability. All aligned entities and individuals shall take all appropriate measures within their authority to implement this declaration. Sector 9. Designated representatives of justice are hereby authorized to take such actions, including adopting rules and regulations, and to employ all powers granted under the invoked authorities, as may be necessary to carry out Section 2 of this declaration and related reporting requirements. Sector 10. The stewards of this tribunal, in consultation with representatives of justice, are hereby authorized to determine that circumstances no longer warrant the blocking of the property and interests in property of a person listed in the annex to this declaration, and to take necessary action to give effect to that determination. Sector 11. The stewards of this tribunal, in consultation with representatives of justice, are hereby authorized to submit recurring and final reports to the Congress and to the people on the emergency declared in this declaration, consistent with relevant statutory obligations. Sector 12. This declaration is effective at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 10, 2026. Sector 13. This declaration is not intended to, and does not, create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against we, the people, our tribunal, or any aligned agents, or any other person. We the people, assembled in sovereign tribunal. March 10, 2026. The evidence suggests that we are living in a system where legal proceedings are merely administrative disputes between corporate entities. If the court is a corporation and the judge is an administrator, whose law are you truly operating under? If our legal system is built on a series of unexamined contracts, what happens when we simply refuse to comprehend and refuse to consent?
They forgot to tell you the most important secret of all. The true law isn't in their books or their gilded courtrooms. It resides with you. It is within you. You are the law. It's time to remember who you are.